learned a lot, and I followed my passion.
It's Principles of Passion.
I have a dream.
With hosts Chris Thomas.
We really envision a world where all youth are inspired to find, define, and follow their passion.
In order to follow your dreams,
I have a dream today.
You have to put your passion first.
Sitting down with Chris and Mickey this week, it's Maui Jones, founder of Echo Theater Collective, an Oak Park organization centered around social justice. Maui is committed to social change using art, music, and storytelling. Plus, he's had a TED Talk. This is Principles of Passion. Let's get it, y'all.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The one, the only, Maui. How you doing, brother?
I'm good. I got Bob Ross behind me over here.
Hey. Who is that? Who you got?
Bob Ross, man.
Oh, you trying to draw something for us right now? You trying to draw?
What's up, brother?
Oh, you trying to paint something? Nah, that's what's up, man. I appreciate that show of creativity in the background, bro.
Yeah. He's one of my muses, you know.
Yeah, I love it.
Bob Ross lived his life on his terms. I love it.
So for those of y'all tuning in for the first time, we appreciate you. This is Principles of Passion, Season 3, Episode 12. Some real talk tonight, y'all. We're in a state of a different way of thinking, right? There's opportunities. And we really want to talk about one thing that could be potentially holding us back, right? The privilege at play in creative industries. And creativity isn't just art and music. We create in every industry, right? When you bring something new to the table, something innovative, that's creativity. So we really want to talk about more focused on the privilege within the creative industry, though. So Maui, again, I appreciate you, bro, for jumping on. I hope people heard the brief introduction, but tell us, who is Maui Jones? Who are you?
I'm just a guy trying to live my life on my terms, trying to live an intentional life, something that started just a few years ago. I think I was kind of in the dark for a long time, right? And just kind of doing what I had to do to get the money to feed myself. And that was about as far as I could see. That was like, I had no ambitions. And seeing my mom is kind of who inspired me. And you see my TED Talk, so that's kind of largely what it's about, right? Like when she was in a bad place, right, that echoed into my life and it kind of pulled me into a bad place, growing up in that chaos, and seeing her redemption song inspired my own, so learning that, right, learning the power of like kind of taking control of my story, being my own author, and seeing the power of what that could do in my life just in a very short period of time, right, that made me want to try and share that formula with other people.
I love it. Let's pull this up real quick, brother. Let me pull up your TED Talk. And if you don't mind, can I share the end?
The letter?
The letter. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. For those of y'all that haven't heard Maui's TED Talk, I'll make sure that I post that in the chat. But I cried a little bit. I was like, because what he was saying was just powerful, y'all. And he had just gotten done talking about the relationship that he has with his mom, and the relationship that he had, and the relationship that she was going through with herself. And a lot of that brought to life some things to Maui. And so this was the end of the TED Talk here.
It was a lot heavier back then.
Dear Echo, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the weight I'm obligated to pass on to you.
Let me pause real quick. This is a letter to his unborn son, Echo. And we'll talk a little bit more about Echo and the meaning of that after this. Just wanted to give clarity there.
You will be born innocent and limitless in your potential, and my first act as a father will be to traumatize you with the burden of being black in a white world. It is not my intention to do this. I'm sorry that you will go through life being marginalized by people that do not see all of you. I'm sorry you will be ignored by your teachers when you ask to be seen. I'm sorry people will regard your pain as fantasy, and I'm sorry that the world can be so cruel. Mostly, though, I'm sorry that I let all of those other things keep us from meeting each other. I'm sorry that I did not see all the amazing things I would pass on to you. You will be so strong because of your heritage. You come from grand traditions of queens and slaves who found ways to exist and live and laugh and create, all while being lynched and raped. You come from a legacy of inventors and doctors and activists who changed the world with love, all while being bombed and killed. I'm sorry it took me the better part of 40 years to realize that. I can't wait to meet you. I hope you can forgive me for my foolishness in delaying our meeting. I can't wait to see the person you become. I can't wait to see how you find ways to be free in a world that would shackle you. And I can't wait to see what you will leave behind and what kind of echo you will be. With love and resistance, Dad.
Thank you.
So just beautiful there, y'all. Beautiful piece of spoken word from your heart. I appreciate that. I want to just acknowledge your presence there. You know, I felt your spirit and your heart. So I guess if you could tell me and just the viewers, I haven't had an opportunity to talk with you about that poem. A lot has changed, y'all, since 2019. What was then and what's now, Maui?
Yeah. So when I was working on that talk, I knew I had the bones of what I wanted to say. And as I was breaking the talk, it forced me to look at the trauma I had yet to reconcile. And then I realized why I hadn't felt ready to be a father. And that was because I was afraid to pass on that trauma to somebody else. Right. And in realizing that, I realized, I'm still shackled. Right. I still have work to do. I probably will always have work to do. But that's part of the journey of life. And I was denying my echo, right? The next phase of my legacy and the legacies of those that came before me. I was denying that continued evolution by being afraid in that way. So after I did that TED Talk, and I should also preface by saying that my partner, she had no idea that I was gonna end with that. She didn't know what it was, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that was her first time hearing my talk, was when I did it on that stage. And in about I think I did that in December, and by January we were expecting. And that was pretty exciting. And then about halfway through the pregnancy, we lost the baby. And that was rough, Yeah. And then I kind of had like this metaphorical baby in this, cultural center. I was trying to get off the ground, and I actually had found a spot and raised the money, just through my words, just talking to people, telling them the dream of a community center that was centered and run by the people that it serves, not, it's not being authored by anybody else but the people who it is serving, the traditionally, historically, and intentionally marginalized peoples of our communities. And then that fell through, right? So like I've had a lot of highs and I've had a lot of lows.
It's
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Right. So there's a lot of highs, there's a lot of lows, but and that's kind of just been my life, right? Like, my life, there's all these these markers of extreme, personal, familial, professional tragedy.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about that is that that if I author my story, right, then I can decide what that means for me, right? I can decide that I'm a survivor. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. And then those things just make me more powerful, right? My daughter, who didn't make it, right? She inspired me to do some stuff that I'm not ready to announce yet, but it's going to be pretty special that I'm doing in her name and in her honor and in her power, that she still matters, right? Even though she never got a chance to be in this world with me, that she still matters and that her voice still has power.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah. So that's, that's kind of like the sadness of what came next, but, but it's still valid. It's still important.
Yeah, bro. And I really, really want to just acknowledge you sharing and feeling safe in the space enough to share, and, a lot of us deal with trauma and different facets, and, we're not comfortable sharing that. And then people don't learn from our stories, and then we don't grow, and people don't grow, and we don't release that trauma.
Right.
I think that's so important to, I don't want to ever say forget, right? But sometimes you got to let it go from inside of you and let other people know, though, the impact that it can have on them, right? Like, how can they learn? How can they grow? How can we all just grow from that memory, of whatever that kindling is from that memory, So,
yeah. And then I didn't even get into the near death experience and losing 200 pounds, I was big AF in that video. I had heart failure. I didn't know it at the time.
I'm gonna post some stuff in here. I won't, I ain't gonna go too hard, But I will definitely post the TED Talk in the chat, because my man here was big and been killing it, working on this 5K. Just, if you see Maui's kitchen, you see how he's really holistically taking care of himself inside and out, right? It starts from the inside and then the outside grows, right? So he's really been, bro, you gotta check him out. So
yeah, I'm actually looking to hook up with you on that, because I am working on, because so many people asked me to share that journey. And then what I realized, even just in that TED Talk, right, that journey is not just a physical health journey or a spiritual health journey or a mental health journey, that it's all of those, simultaneously and intertwined and intersected. It's a holistic health journey.
Yeah.
And so I will say that I am working on a show about holistic health.
We talked briefly about it.
We talked briefly about it. Yeah, but I got more to announce coming up in the next few weeks. But yeah,
I want to make sure I connect you, if you're not already, with Daryl Satcher over at A Leading Man.
I want to go to his yoga stuff, man.
So him and a Greater Good Foundation, we're doing the
Cody's foundation.
Cody and Josh, yeah. So we're doing the wellness event next Saturday, August 29th. So great opportunity to come out, socially. That make sure you got your mask on. Make sure you got your mask. But we'll be out there at Walther Christian Academy all day, the 29th, Saturday the 29th. We got a circuit court. We got a couple of yoga sessions. I'm waiting on confirmations from one music therapy session. We got Dreams. You got your girl Natalie, Dreams Chicago, coming out. So she confirmed. And so I'm excited, bro. I would love to get you out there and talk. I know Daryl's doing something very similar in terms of that that wellness space as well, and bringing a mastermind collective to life here. So I think it would be just good for y'all to collaborate.
Is it going to be outdoors? I'm very careful because I'm very high risk because of my heart. Even though I'm much healthier now, I'm still high risk, so I'm very careful about that stuff.
Yeah. I was talking with Mayor Hoskins yesterday, and he was asking, he's like, well, who's your event planner? And did you connect with the state? I was like, sir, you're overwhelming me right now.
Rory's a wonderful man. I love him very much.
But no, we will be outside. It will be, socially distant, masks, doing our best. We got a baseball field and a football field.
Okay.
So we got plenty of space outdoors to make sure that we can be. I'm actually looking for more folks that want to do workshops, because I think we can hold a few more workshops simultaneously. So if you know anyone interested, looking to do a workshop, definitely, whether it be art, music, entertainment. We blabbing, we steering off topic.
Yeah, we steering off topic. We really back in.
Play. The privilege. So no, we appreciate you. We haven't got a chance to catch up, y'all. So we appreciate y'all just tuning in to Principles of Passion. Here on, as I look to the right, here on season 3, episode 12, really just talking about the privilege at play, right? Maui, what's privilege to you? What is that?
Simply defined, it is a special treatment or priority, but given to a particular group of people. That I think that in its simplest terms, that is getting first shake of the job because you're a dude, or getting first shake of the job because you're white, right? Like, that's privilege, right?
Right. Yeah, man. I think there's we get kind of tense when we talk about that, right? Especially, I didn't even put it in the heading here, right? But when we talk about white privilege, and listen, my stepdad, he just dropped my son off. That's been my pop since I was 1.5. I'm blessed enough to have an amazing Black father, an amazing stepfather that's white, right? A mom that's Black. So I've been blessed enough to see a few different sides. I think where it gets touchy is people kind of get a little defensive when you even bring up the word, when you bring up the term. And for me, when I look at privilege, it's feeling like you should be owed something, right? Feeling like this is your time, right? Like, nothing. White people don't have to work hard. Well, white people did work hard. Well, who worked hard, and what are we working hard through and towards? And I think really just looking and defining some of that, who is Black people, who is white people, as we grow together, and hopefully not apart, right? How do we see each other,
right,
individualistically, right, through our presence, and I don't know if we do that a lot. I don't know if we take the time to understand who we're connecting with.
Yeah. And I feel like also, right, that it's evolved over time, right? That priority privilege, at least as it relates to America, to the United States of America, I should say, because America is a much larger segment than just the United States. It changed over time, right? It used to be this small group of European people, of English, British people, basically, and then the Irish, the Italian, the Polish, the German. None of them were in that club, right? And then but Black people were definitely at the very back of the line. And then the Black people fought for their independence, and they needed numbers, right? Well, let's expand the definition of who gets that privilege. Let's, is Black people rise up? Well, let's define what white people are as the counterpoint to that. All right. Oh, okay. Italian people, Irish people, Polish people, y'all can be in the club. Y'all can keep, St. Patrick's Day and spaghetti and and potskis and but besides that, just be America, right? Like divorce yourself of what makes you culturally unique and culturally beautiful, and be part of this, which is not a new thing. It's still based on white European, British, that's what's centric in that, whereas we can't do that because our skin is it right, like we look different, so we can't assimilate to that level, right? So we are going to be always denied that privilege as long as we kind of focus our communities in that Eurocentric standard.
I love that. I love that lens, that kind of base of what we already are. I'm going to put something in the chat right here. Robin Deanne, I mean, she drops it, bro. And she dropped some knowledge. I'm going to put a link for you guys to look up her book. I'm going to read a quote though, because when I think of white privilege, and I know, some black people may be mad at me, like, why didn't you put a black person on there? Why aren't you quoting a black person? Well, if we're going to get through to everyone, right, we have to speak from both mindsets, right? If we're talking about white privilege, I need to hear some white people talking about how they know that they have the white privilege. I need to hear some black people talking about how they know that there is black privilege, right? And that it's affecting them, but how do we all work together? And so I want to bring this, Robin DiAngelo, great book, y'all. Great book, White Fragility. Why is it so hard for white people to talk about racism? Again, I got love for everybody. I'm gonna let y'all know that. I do. But there's systemic issues in our nation going on right now. So listen to this quote. And what is white privilege? Robin says, I was co-leading a workshop with an African-American man. A white participant said to him, I don't see race. I don't see you as black. My co-trainer's response was, then how will you see racism? He then explained to her that he was black. He was confident that she could see this, and that his race meant that he had a very different experience in life than she did. If she were ever going to understand or challenge racism, she would need to acknowledge this difference. Pretending that she did not notice that he was black was not helpful to him in any way, as it denied his reality. Indeed, it refused his reality and kept her reality insular and unchallenged. This pretense that she did not notice his race assumed that he was just like her. And in doing so, she projected her reality onto him. For example, I feel welcome at work, so you must too. I've never felt that my race mattered, so you must feel that your race doesn't either. But of course, we do see the race of other people, and race holds deep social meaning for us. Again, Robin DiAngelo, White Fragility. Why is it so hard for white people to talk about racism? Maui, thoughts? Just anything there?
Yeah, I think it always drives me crazy when people talk about just like not like just don't see it, just like refuse to accept it exists. Though that's kind of tough when the institutions that you have to operate within do see that and then enforce certain things on you as a result. Like, it doesn't matter if I pretend like it doesn't exist. That does not change how many black people end up in jail. That does not change the way other people will view me just by looking at my name on a sheet of paper. My given name is Kamau, Kamau, African name. And they see that, African name, first name with Jones, last name, instantly they know that I'm black, and there's certain things that are going to be applied to me because of that.
Right.
Right. so like, to say that to me, saying that is a form of racism. That's just like turning a blind eye to it. Just like, I'm just gonna act like you, like I can't see that you getting hurt.
Right.
Like
I don't see it. No,
yeah.
I don't see that you're black. I don't see. And I'll be honest, bro, for a while, I lived that life, right?
Me too.
Interracial, living like, yo, that's my stepdad. They said, no, everyone's the same. We're all, and like as I see the inequities, in the corporate America, in the staffing space, as I see in the communities, I see it in the sports industry, and I should know his name, but for those of y'all that didn't see this week, we got our first black, I want to say president of the NFL, right? The Washington team, not the Redskins. Let me look up and see what his name is. But that is something that is a step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just having those conversations about the disparities, the inequities, gets us to the problem.
Right. But I will say this, though, about the NFL, right? Like, they've had a multitude of opportunities over the past few years, since Cap called it out, right? And then their reaction at first was, right, well, we'll just blackball Cap and tell them, like, if they kneel, then they in trouble,
right?
Right. It was only until the situation became untenable for them. It's only until we were able to grab the narrative that they're like, oh, maybe we were wrong about kneeling, and we'll change the name of the team. That's all superficial,
right?
Even like hiring, having a black, president of the thing, right? Like even that.
So Jason Wright, just to give him due credit, first black team president in NFL's history. But again, it's kind of throwing something on top of what you already did wrong.
Right, it's a cup of water on a forest fire.
Right.
It's like, are you willing to break it down to the very foundation, right, and build a new foundation? Because like that's the only way that you're gonna be able to, I think, have systems that are devoid of this privilege, is if you just start over. We keep trying to, we'll just adjust it, but fundamentally we got it right. Well, no, we're saying fundamentally you did not get it right. So we cannot use these systems. So these systems were created by cis white het men and left out, BIPOC, LGBTQ, people on the spectrum, differently able people. None of those people were included in that process. And it was all built on the systemic oppression of black people. It was all built on taking this land from its indigenous peoples, right? So like until you reimagine from the ground up what this country is and what it can be, I think we're just going to keep seeing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, man, I agree with you, brother.
And that's the privilege, right? That's the privilege that's baked into the foundation of this country. It doesn't really matter how anti-racist you are, as long as you're operating within this country, you're actively hurting people, especially black people.
Yeah, and there's some. I think there's some lines to be drawn in the sand too, and people are always hesitant to draw those lines because they're scared of whose feelings they're going to hurt, or by putting a stamp on their integrity, they're scared of who's not going to be their friend anymore. At the end of the day, right is right.
Mm-hmm.
You know when something's not right because someone is telling you that they don't feel right about it.
Right.
It's that simple, right? It shouldn't be all this, we got to look at this data and we got to figure this out. It's like they're not feeling right. There's inequities. This is the first NFL, president. There's been 9 CEOs in Fortune 1000 since 1999. You know what I mean? It's like, we gotta look at the facts, people, and not sit here and marinate in those, but like, what's the change going to be? And like, that's what this conversation is about. Just to bring it back home, like there is privilege at play, right? when we look at that privilege, I want to really look at how that's affecting us in terms of being able to fully be creative, fully be authentic in our true selves. And so I'll pose this next question before we dive into that. Like, what are your thoughts on the creative divide, or what does that mean to you? Because essentially, that's what white privilege and racism is doing, right? And shout out to Mickey Grace. She's doing great. You know, I appreciate all of her energy on the back end, just helping us kind of get some of our straight and narrows down. But she really brought home this theory, this phrase of creative divide to me. And so, like, what are your thoughts, Maui, on that creative divide and how privilege has been affecting that?
So for me, creative divide is, it kind of goes back to kind of what we were saying actually when we were off topic, is who gets to author the story, right? Like who has the freedom to create their path, to create art. You know, art is, you know, the medium of art, or all the mediums of art are simply a way to convey these moments and these experiences, not just through words, but through feeling and through emotion. And you're, you know, recreating that through sound and visual and feel and taste. And, you know, and for a long time, we have been forced to create within this white POV, right? Because that's the world within that we live in. And I think that diminishes us as a whole. We don't get to see the whole picture, right? Going back to that whole holistic, we don't get to see the holistic,
right,
real of America, because there are a lot of threads that are left out of that tapestry. So there's a lot of holes, there's a lot of gaps, and those create those divides, right? Because those empty spaces, that's where we should be, and we've fallen through into the empty. And so we need to be given the pen, we need to be given the thread, and we need to be able to write our story or weave ourselves into the whole, right, to bridge those divides.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. And you hit it right on the head. You know, I've been talking with some people about some things going on here in Oak Park, as well as some folks doing some good work at Austin Town Hall, and within the Park District. And more importantly, and I don't even want to say more importantly, but in a grander scheme of things, some of the organizations I've been talking with in corporate, you know, they're all saying the same thing, but not doing the thing that needs to be done. And it's letting us have a seat at the table, right? There's all these programs, all these projects being done, all these, you know, this and that being done within politics, within community, within Park District. And, you know, it's about having a diverse and equitable seat at the table. Right? Not just diversity, like, oh, I got a bunch of white people that are all different ages, right? That's not diversity, right? Oh, I got a bunch of black and white people that are all the same age. Is that true diversity, right? It's getting people from different races, Asian, right? African American, right? Black American, if you don't associate yourself as African, right? And whatever that looks like, white, Eastern European, white American, however you associate.
Right, because there's spectrums within spectrums.
Right, right. But as we start to have some of these tables set, who's at those tables as we're looking for this change? You know, and I think that's what we got to look at is, you know, the creative divide starts with lack of resources, right? It starts with hundreds of years of generational wealth being depleted from certain races, right? And so we have to look at that divide can only be brought together if we fill the gaps, right? The gaps are in education. The gaps are in the workforce. The gaps are in getting our young adults off the street. So we can be like, yo, you got something better to do than go make $300 a day. I'm going to show you how to make $300 an hour. Right. And that's what the creative divide, at least to me, is how do we look at those separations of community, of workforce, of life, and how do we start to fill those gaps with things we could do in action right now, not just talk about it. So
Preach.
yeah, bro, just life. Let me read another one of these quotes, man. You got anything you want to throw in? Go ahead, bro. I want to read another D'Angelo quote, but
no, do the quote. Do the quote. Let's keep it moving.
All right, cool. So, and this is where, one thing I had brought up earlier, it's uncomfortable. It's less uncomfortable for me to talk about racism than it is for a white person. But this quote kind of sums it up because there is an uncomfortable feeling, right? But again, Robin DiAngelo says, for a lot of white people, just suggesting that being white has meaning will trigger a deep defensive response. People be like, oh, I'm white. Whoa, what do you mean I'm white? Like, whoa, no, I'm just, that can trigger a deep response. She says, and that defensiveness serves to maintain both our comfort and our positions in a racially inequitable society from which we benefit. So what do you think about, and here's the bigger question, not even just the quote, but how do we break those defenses down as people of Black and white trying to bring solidarity to communities?
So as long as you're looking through that singular lens, right? That, I'm speaking directly to white people right now, right? As long as you're looking through that white male lens, you're going to see when you're going to get defensive when you hear people talk, right? You need to be able to submit. You need to be able to be silent and listen, and actually listen to what people are saying, that you're hurting them, right? That you have the privilege to step on my neck when I'm telling you, and when I'm telling you that you're hurting me, you can take 8 minutes, 46 seconds to think about it, right? Like, to be like, what? No, that can't be. And by the time you're done thinking about it, I'm dead. Can I curse on this? I'm trying not to curse.
My mama said, she told me don't, but I don't care. I'll you.
I'll try not to curse too much.
But you can say whatever you want, Maui.
And that's messed up. Like, I don't understand how people can say that this is not an issue. Right. If you look at the actual history of this country, tell me when it stopped. Show me when it stopped. Right? Is it when slavery was abolished? Because directly after, as soon as slavery was abolished, then there's that clause, right, in the 13th Amendment, like unless you can be convicted, and then a penal system is created to continue slave labor. Right. Tell me when we got the right to vote, because then, every time you give us something, you create a new subversion. Right. There's never been just a full stop to this, a full reimagining. It's just like, OK, but we basically got it right. It's like, no, you didn't. And every time we let our foot off of the gas of trying to push for that change, we see things revert back. I'll give you an example. I can't remember the exact title number, but there was a title that Thurgood Marshall put into action to forcefully integrate schools. During that period, during those decades, black education skyrocketed. It soared. In his last year on the Supreme Court decided, okay, that was never meant to be permanent. Things are better now, so we can get rid of this title. We don't need to enforce this anymore. Within a few years, everything was back to being just as segregated as it was before Brown versus Board.
Yeah.
right? Like that is the natural state of this country, right?
Yeah.
The natural state of this country is division. You got this guy in the comments talking about where did the terms black and white come from? They're terms of polarization intended to distinguish division, right? That is the actual natural state of this country.
Again. Where did they come from?
I didn't say where the terms came from. I think they just naturally evolved over time.
What about the term racism?
I think it's a word that describes what it is, right? Like because it's division based on the color of the skin, right? It's based on your race, on where you come from. And that's not unique to this country. I think this country's form of racism is unique. Probably don't see it really much anyplace else. Maybe South Africa is probably the closest to the form of racism that you see here. But most places pre-existed as homogenous societies. So this sort of oppression was not baked into the foundation of the country. Right. So like, yeah, England had a slave trade too, but England existed prior to their slave trade. Their country was not built on the foundation of slavery. It wasn't built on the foundation of oppression. So they have their own unique set of issues. It's not like there's many places in this world where it's okay to be black. Right. There's different problems everywhere in the world for black people, pretty much, including our country, our continent of origin. Right. Because it's even on South Africa. Right.
Yes, sir. Preach, brother. Preach.
So, how do we become less defensive? Well, admit that it exists. Stop denying. Like, submit to the reality of what it is. Submit to the reality that you are not necessarily the hero in the story. And in fact, you might be the villain. Because you're always looking based on what the media is telling you, based on who is authoring the story, is that people that look like me are the boogeyman. Right. And we can even see where that started, because prior to the abolition of slavery, we were thought as docile, like, work animals, right? That were cowardly and wanted to be subservient. And then after we were freed, then D.W. Griffith put out, dropped a deuce on the box office, Birth of a Nation, and then repainted us as these scary, crazy mongrel monsters that are going to rape white women. Right. Like, you can see the origin of that myth. You can see where, and that is intentional, right? That is an intentional thing to perpetuate the slave trade by criminalizing us. Like, you can clearly
by making people fear us,
it.
By making people scared of us. It's portrayed in the media. It's portrayed in our history. A lot of history lessons weren't even told by our people about how we overcame stuff. It's told by other people about how they overcame stuff for us. And so, yeah, bro, it's spread throughout and through. And you still hear the same stuff today, right? Like, why was that person then standing on the side of the road? He must have been dangerous. He did some stuff bad in the past, so it's okay that they killed him today, even if he wasn't doing anything in that moment. He did something bad in the past, so his life didn't matter as much as mine. No, that's not true, because all of us mess up. I almost said the F word right there. But we all mess up in our lives, right? It does not mean that it's okay to kill me. You think that it's okay to kill a young boy because he whistled at a girl? Right? That's what happened to Emmett Till, and that's what ignited our civil rights movement in the 60s. You think it's okay to shoot a boy because he got a hood on? Right, because he's running? Right. No. It's not okay. And it's just like, this shouldn't be something up for debate. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And it shouldn't be politicized either. This should not be like, and sadly, it's going to be, in this election cycle, it's going to be the nucleus of both parties. So one party saying like, no, you should vote for us because you matter. And the other person, no, you should vote for us because they don't matter. Right? Like, that shouldn't be politicized. That should be just basic human right. That's like what we say that our country is all about. It obviously is not, because we're constantly fighting over who gets to live. Right. No, we are, man. Who gets the appropriate health, needs, right? Get their health needs met from a wellness perspective from all across the board. Let's bring it back, because we could talk all day about the problem at hand. We know what the problem is. The problem is racism. The problem is both people of our Black communities and our white communities are separating themselves from each other on both sides. What's important, in my humble opinion right now, is that we really look at creativity, right? We look at innovation. We look at what it means to be in a safe space, to feel like you could create what your authentic self is, right? And then once you really have that safe space, how do you connect with people that are your support system, right? And once you have a support system, how are you able to deal with the trauma that's been either inflicted upon you by yourself through whatever means, or by other people? I've had some trauma inflicted on me by myself, being a dumbass. You know what I'm saying? Excuse my language, Mom, but like being a knucklehead, like stupid stuff, right? So I think really looking at those pillars of trauma-informed care as we look at being creative people in society, right? Because creative people and innovative people will be the ones that, regardless of your color, your race, your origin, your ethnicity, your religion, you will transcend the bullshit, right? You will see beyond all of the excuses, and you will continue to look for the solution, right? And so I think that's one thing I want to bring up, is like, how can we, even in this time of racism, in this time of separation, in this time of finger pointing, right? How can we foster creativity more, right? But how can fostering that creativity improve individuals that are working anywhere, right? People, right? Not even just an employee. How can we do that? What are some suggestions you have, Maui?
I just think just the sheer act of allowing someone to have part of have ownership in the decision-making process, to be in that dream space, to let people dream on what something can be, all it's gonna do is make your employee more vested, right? If my day job, I'm a scheduling coordinator for an interpretation firm, but my boss, she listens to my ideas, right? And I've helped shape policy. I've helped dream what this company can be. They let me, when I first started, I'm all about celebrating each other, right? So it used to be, before I got there, it was someone's birthday. Oh, okay, we'll get them lunch. I started making handmade birthday cards, and I took what I knew of those people and put that on the card, right? So, my desk mate loves the Cubs, so I figured out how to draw a picture of Harry Carey and then did the Cubs logo, and Harry Carey was saying happy birthday to him. See his eyes light up, right? That connected us. We're good friends now, right? And I don't agree with pretty much anybody that I work with. I don't agree with their politics, but I still treat them as people, and I still bless them with love, because that's the only mode I know. I know I sound real angry right now, white people, but when I deal with white people, I still treat them with nothing but love. Even as I live within the system that they built to oppress me, I'm still gonna hit you with that love, right?
And you don't sound, bro. You don't sound angry at all, man. I want to just clarify and acknowledge that.
Yeah.
A lot of white people and people in general, right, can feel that when a Black male is excited about something, he may curse a little bit, he may raise his voice, right? He's angry. It's not anger. That's
and get animated. Damn.
Right.
Right. But being given the space to do that, to the point where they're like, hey, someone's birthday's coming up, can you make a card? Oh yeah, absolutely. I did that for a few years, and would just figure out ways to celebrate each other and say, hey, this month let's all go bowling, or this month let's go to play ping pong. It was creative ways to connect as a team. and that made us more efficient as a team. And even though we in my department lost, 2 people as they quit, like we were able to keep up the same level of production, still being just as happy with now only 2 people running, three people in my department now, total. And we deal with an even bigger market than when I started. Right. So like I could, and part of that was like learning to be a team, and I don't see that in other departments in my company.
Yeah, man. I love everything you said about being able to understand people at the basic level of where they are.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the work that you're doing, you're taking time to understand the needs of the people in your environment at their level.
What are the two things that make up that need? One is being seen, and one is being heard. Right. So there's two. So, which means that we need to listen, and we need to speak.
And use our eyes.
Right. So we have this like reciprocation, so that we're seeing each other. Right.
That's creation, y'all. As we're talking about this topic of the privilege at play in creative industries, I'm a landmark student. I finished SELP recently, and one thing that they preach is your creation is your word, right? You create with what comes out of your mouth to someone else. We have all these thoughts and ideas in our head that are here and they're there, and we sit back in these transgressions and this and that. But the second something comes out of your mouth and you get a chance to create something for the future, right? Not be a gossiper, not be talking about this and that and all the things that shoulda, woulda, coulda been. I'm talking about what real change is about, right? We all have that opportunity to create possibilities in front of us. And so the second something comes out of your mouth, right? You speak word, right? God said, and then there was the word, right? The word, when you create that with someone, integrity is such a crucial piece to that, and we got a lot of people running around saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be there. I'm going to see you here. I don't see them. I don't see them doing it. And I for sure don't hear them in the after effects of all the chaos. So I think it's important when we look at improving this creativity and improving people, we got to look at showing up, right? That's creativity. That's the words that come out of my mouth or that come out of my hand or off my mic or off my instrument. That's real. That's real talk. That's integrity. You know what I mean? That's it, bro.
That's for real. That's for real.
What you got a hard stop at 8:30? What you got? I know you got.
I don't got no hard stop. I can keep going.
We got a few more questions, man. But let's get to this next one. So, how can rethinking creativity drive clarity, positivity, and overall wellness in today's communities and workplaces?
So I think in terms of rethinking creativity, right? If we're looking at creativity as voice and space, is kind of how I try and like change that into words that corporate America can understand. I think by listening and seeing all the tools you have at your disposal, that you're going to get greater perspective. And I think that the people that are in your employ are going to be happier because, money is very important, obviously. And I think that's part of one of those tools to being able to be creative is having the funds so that you don't have to worry about some of the stuff that's kind of the foundational life stuff,
right,
that will take up most of your headspace. As you become more financially independent, you're able to get to the higher bricks on that, Maslow's pyramid,
brick by brick.
brick by brick.
Yeah.
And right, it's same thing with wellness, right? Like it's not going to fix all of your issues, but it will give you the space to start to deal with those issues, right? If we're like, now I have the time, right? Like getting this day job I have, and I should tell you that, like, right, I work in an office, or I used to work, now I work from home, but I work next to somebody that went to Northwestern. That's my desk mate. Somebody went to Northwestern. We're virtual desk mates, but I have a GED. I got that job based purely on my ability to sell who Maui is. It took me a year just to get an in-person interview, but I knew if I could get in the room with somebody that I could sell them on my story, on the story of me, and make them want to invest their money in me. Now the jobs there are making more money than I've ever made before, based solely on my ability to be creative, to be an effective author of my story. Right. And having that extra cash where I'm not living check to check for the first time in my life has allowed me to tackle things that were long overdue. So like if I were still where I was 6 years ago, then last year when I had the heart failure and I was 467 pounds, I probably would have died.
Right. And I want to acknowledge that, bro. Like, bro, the video we saw at the beginning of this episode and the Maui I'm talking to right now, a year makes a world of a difference.
Right.
A world. And like sometimes we're like, oh, it's going to take so long for me to get there. Brick by brick, y'all.
Brick by brick. It was one step at a time.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know that I'm able to do that as effectively if I don't have the tools to be creative. I don't have the tools to work, because I was given those tools or found those tools within and figured out how to utilize them and get better position and get more money. Now I'm able to be able to carve out more time for me. I'm able to prioritize myself.
But what did you just say? What would you just said something so valuable. You even caught yourself.
Right. I almost gave them the credit
because I was able to get them
the whole time.
because I was able to get those tools.
Right
from within. And sometimes we're like, and you hit a spot on. Sometimes we are waiting for the tools to come instead of looking at our own value and being like, yo, the power, like it's right here.
Mm-hmm.
What I need to be doing is right here.
Yep.
It's not looking at where I'm going to be in 5 years. It's looking at the progress I can make right now between today and tomorrow.
Oh yeah. You can't effectively use those exterior tools, like the tools out in the world, until you learn how to use the tools within. Are you like a comic book nerd? Like you watch like Marvel movies?
My son got me on them.
Okay. So Marvel movies, all Marvel movies, watch every single Marvel movie that you watch with your son. If you think about it, it's a 4-act structure, right? So first we're introduced to our hero. Then we're introduced to the problem, right? We're introduced, when we're introduced to the hero, we're also introduced to their flaws. And then we're introduced to an external problem. And they cannot beat that external problem because of their interior flaw. And in the third act, they have to beat that interior flaw, right? So the third act is actually them conquering the thing inside of them so they can go conquer the thing outside. Right. So like that, and that's just that goes back to Joseph Campbell and his hero's journey, right? That's part of the hero's journey. And then once you figure out the inside thing, then you can beat the exterior thing, and then that's where then you're a transformation you.
That's storytelling. That's right. That's starting at this. That's having this, and then here's your victory, and then here's your new norm, right?
Right.
It's going through those ways, but this from here to victory is what a lot of people, they think they should just be at victory. But like that journey, that process, That's the beauty. That's the creativity right there.
Right, but so you have that hero's arc, right? The upper arc, but then there's, I think, an opposite arc as well that is just as important to name, and that's the villain arc, right? And deconstructing that within yourself and realizing, that all of us are simultaneously hero and villain, abuser and abused, as you look through various lenses, right? Like, is a Black person in America, right? Like, I am, on the losing side of this power structure. As a man, I'm on the winning side, right? And like, so within Black communities, right? Like, Black men have wronged Black women, right? And so being able to name that, admit that, and admit that, I've failed 100 times before and I will fail 100 times in the future, but I need to strive to be the best and strive to be better than that. Right, like, is also important. Like, realizing that, like, as I'm calling people to be better, how can I find ways to be better too? And that's part of that interior work. Like, both require the same interior work and honest look at yourself.
I love that you said that the villain story is very rarely recognized, and we look at with religion and Catholicism, and hey, he was an angel and now he's the devil, but what was that story of why he wasn't able to stay up there with the good? We don't talk about that whole story. It's always the good. You got to search the good, right? But like those stories of how things were bad, how they weren't the way that we wanted them to be, how they weren't the way that we wanted them to create, right? How do we shift that into this positivity, into this wellness space? How do we, like as an alchemist does, right? How do we take the metals, right, and turn them into fucking gold? You know what I mean? I think
you cursed before I did.
Shut up. Sorry. Love you, Mom. Yeah. Now I'm just gonna go hard, right?
but that's the passion, though.
Yeah.
Right. Your passion first, man.
Absolutely. So let's get because these are important. I don't want to just have all this talk and have no action items after, right? A lot of times we do that. We have these great events and these great things, and afterwards everyone's like, "Oh, that was great." It's like, well, what are you gonna do when you go home, right? So what are the questions? And we're gonna do both. But because we talking about privilege, we gonna put y'all people first. All right. So what are the questions that white Americans should be asking these days?
I think they should be asking themselves, how much space am I taking up? I think they should be asking themselves, am I really listening? I think people should ask themselves, am I being actively anti-racist? I'm actually fighting against this. I think people should be asking themselves, is yelling at each other on social media really the most effective way to affect change? Right. I know we're in quarantine right now. Like in COVID times, like I said, I'm high risk. Like, no matter how healthy I get, I have a bad ticker now, so I have to be very careful about how I go outside. So now I have to think about, how can I be effective digitally? Right. What are you doing? Right. So if we talk about action, like, if you are a person that has money, you can affect change with your dollars. You can give money without influence. You can give money, but not try and steer the ship. Say, here, do with this money as you will. One of the coolest things about that center was the money that we were given, which was enough to rent the space that we had for like a year. There was no strings attached to that money, no expectation of what to do with that money. That's unheard of, right?
Right. That's the basis of our conversation.
Right.
Right. Is that every time us as Black people, or any race that doesn't have the capital to fulfill on their dream, it always gets capital thrown at us but then what are the restrictions?
Right.
What are the guidelines? And so, yeah.
Right. Like that, like, how can I give people that are traditionally, historically, intentionally marginalized the freedom to do what they need to do to pull themselves out, right? Because it is not going to be as effective if somebody else is trying to pull me out, right? Because now I'm still stuck in your POV. They need to give me the freedom to pull myself into my own POV, right? So how do we give each other the space for that? I think about that whenever I encounter a situation, is like, how can I, if I'm on the other side of that power dynamic, on the wrong side of the power dynamic, how can I change that scale? Right. How can I cede that power? So like, for instance, the knee-jerk reaction to me as a person that's grown up as a cishet male, when I hear
as
WAP,
a what male, say it. What's the term?
a cisgendered heterosexual male.
Okay.
And I hear a song
For
like WAP.
that don't know, explain the. And I don't want to go too much. Let's probably cut it off in the next 4 or 5 minutes. But cisgender, explain that.
So I am the gender that I was assigned at birth, and I am heterosexual. The person that's interested in people of the opposite sex, male. There are certain heteronormative things that have been assigned to me, right, in terms of marginalization of women and having them hide their sexuality and things like that. And then you have two strong Black women come out with this song celebrating their sexuality, and people are, and men are like clutching their figurative pearls, right? Oh, I can't believe they're being so dirty. And then I think to myself, wait, Snoop Dogg made his career on this same sexualization. What am I actually clutching my pearls at?
Right.
If I listen to the song, that song's kind of banger. I love that song.
What song? Snoop song or what other song?
No, Cardi B's new song.
Oh,
WAP. You can guess what that
Cardi
stands
B
for.
Does.
Yeah, I think she's wonderful. And but that's a new thing.
Yeah, I apologize.
But that's a new thing, right? Being able to give women the space to be sexually bold is a relatively new thing for this country, for most countries.
Like, what's like real talk? I know we going on, but like, is it bold to like? I get it. I fucking get it.
Mm-hmm.
But is it bold to feel like, oh, I like girls, so I can be around a girl, or I like guys, and like what? Like, there's this. When we look at community, when we look at workforce, right? There's the conservative way, there's the parochial way, there's all these ways.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a right way? And when we look at these women, given their like, is that wrong?
I don't. I think that I don't know that there's much of anything in terms of like self-expression in that way that I would consider wrong, as long as it's not actively hurting somebody. Like, this person celebrating their sexuality and their sexual freedom does not hurt me in the slightest.
Right.
So you do you. Even if that's not the way I operate. I say the same thing in terms of people like fighting for their rights, right? Like, you're out there marching in the streets, pulling down statues. Pulling down statues don't hurt me. Pulling down statues don't hurt white people. Right. So, like, pull down those statues. Because what those statues do is they glorify people, they glorify systems of oppression. They glorify people that created systems of oppression. They make us romanticize history in this way. So, like, I don't care about that. Right. Me, I commit stuff nonviolently. That's my way. And largely what I'm seeing is a nonviolent revolution. So to segue perfectly, I love that. The questions that Black Americans should be asking, right? Especially those Black Americans that are like questioning like our youth. I say, like, man, we ain't said nothing for decades, right? We got quiet, we got complacent, we left the conversation unfinished in the 60s. As our civil rights movement fizzled out into the 70s. Now, that's not necessarily our fault. They killed a lot of our leaders, a lot of our leaders.
I can't wait to see that movie too coming out, bro.
The Black Panther movie that they're working on, that Coogler's working on.
I can't
It's
wait,
gonna be dope, man.
bro. I can't wait.
It's gonna be dope. But
I
like
met him, bro.
Coogler? Where?
No, his son, bro. At the
For real?
Walk the Walk event with Damien and all.
Nice.
It was a blessing, bro, just to feel that presence, man. But no, we gotta start thinking.
Right.
We gotta start looking at like our story, bro. Our story's been shit upon,
Yeah.
and it's been told in this way, this portrayed by media that is predominantly white.
Mm-hmm.
And I love my black people. I love my white people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I love all people, whatever race you are. But until we start understanding that a lot of our separation comes from not the Asians, not the Arabs over here, it's black and white. Y'all, It's a black and white thing. I'm not saying let's sit in that, but I'm saying let's understand that is what it is, and that the biggest piece to that privilege, right, and that creative divide is a lack of resources.
Right.
Resources means we don't got money for generations.
Mm-hmm. And I think that when because that is the foundation upon which this country is built, by dismantling that, it don't just help black people, it helps everybody, including white people, right? Because there's trauma that we're unpacking, the trauma of the oppressed that we have to unpack, but there's also the trauma of the oppressor that they need to deal with, right? And that's right. That's that white fragility. That's that defensiveness. That is the trauma. Because so there's I'll leave you. I know we got to wrap up here, but one more nerd analogy here. There's a British show called Doctor Who. There is an episode. So Doctor Who regenerates over and over. The 11th Doctor is on this spaceship.
Not to cut you off, let's make sure we address this last question too.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes,
cool.
I'm going to address that specifically. But there's this traveling version of the UK, this like spaceship that's like the UK of the future because the Earth has been destroyed. And what you find out is that the foundation of this was an enslaved like celestial animal called a space whale. And as people found out the truth, right, like on this ship, they had the system in place where if you learned the truth, you were given a choice. And if one person pressed the button, it would free the whale, or you could forget what you learned. And I feel like white people are continuously forgetting what you've learned, right? You're hitting the forget button instead of freeing the person, even if it means you're going to lose something. You've muted yourself, I think.
Oh, we good?
Oh no, there you are. There you are. Right. So in terms of the questions Black Americans should be asking, right now our children are marching in the street. Our youth are, because like this movement, from what I see, is largely being led by younger people. Give them that space. Like ask yourself, why weren't we doing this earlier? I think we need to hold ourselves accountable because we haven't been fighting in the way that we should have been fighting to make now we see our kids taking up the fight, and I'm so proud of them. And so ask ourselves, how can we support this youth-led movement, because it's very, very important. I also think we should be asking ourselves, how do we live a whole life? For those of us that are in the struggle, make sure that we remember that we are more like, even though our oppression and our trauma is a part of us, it is not us. That we're more than that. We are whole people. We are whole beings. We are not just beings of oppression. We're whole, beautiful, unique, strong, powerful, resilient people that, like I said in that letter, right, that we created all these amazing things while being oppressed, right? That there is more to us than just that oppression. We find ways to be free. We always find ways to be free. So what are the ways that we're going to find to be free in the future and make it easier for our kids to be free, make it easier for ourselves within our workplaces, make sure that that we are amassing resources that we can pass on, that we can amass our own generational wealth, right? How can we invest in our Black communities, in our Black companies, in our Black entrepreneurs, so that we can amass that generational wealth? And as we amass that wealth, as we amass that power, and we are more able to effectively change the system, are we, the question then is, are we co-opting the same system, or are we making something new? Right. I want to put the power in the hands of people that have been traditionally denied that power, because I believe that they are the best. They are going to be the best chance to dismantle the system. Right. People that are powerful, to use another reference in Lord of the Rings, right? That ring, the powerful people hold that ring and they can't let go of it. They had to go to the lowly hobbit that is not used to being powerful to throw it into the fire.
Yeah.
So there you go. I use a lot of nerd references.
I love it. No, not nerd, bro. Just a lot of great entertainment references, a lot of movie references, a lot of references that touch on different areas of systemic oppression, right? And that's what it's all about, right? Like, again, when we look here at the U.S., we look at the privilege at play in creative industries, it is a black and white thing, y'all, unfortunately. Until we understand that, right? Understand that the workforce, our sports arena, our creative industry, our communities, a lot of the money is coming from white Eastern European individuals. A lot of foundations are built on that. And so when we, as my boy, me and Maui here, are looking to grow our individual brands, we got to tie on the right resources. We got to tie on people that are willing to make change in the community. I know Maui, and I know me, and I know we are not taking money from anyone that doesn't believe in our vision and our way of thinking. And that's what it's all about, is about bringing that creativity to the community in a real sense. And, I'm learning from Maui, honestly. He's been in the space longer than me. I'm learning from everyone that I connect with, and that I have the blessing and the opportunity to do our best to understand each other better, right? And that's true growth in any community, in any workforce, in any nation. It's about really having that understanding to know what privilege is at play, right? And how do you take that privilege and have an understanding of it and know who has the privilege, and start to equal the playing field a little bit. And so that's what our work is. Maui, any last words? Anybody you want to thank? Anybody you want to give a shout out to? Just anything, bro.
Yeah, I got a couple last words. So real quick, I'm going to say to your listeners, learn how to take the pen, learn how to dream, learn how to unlock your creative potential, because once you actualize yourself within, once you realize like the limitless infinite that is inside of you, then that whole world around you is going to change, right? Like you can change the reality around you if you actualize within, like that. It's so important, and it is amazing how quickly that change can happen. I tell you, like when I tell you 5 years ago in my life that I was like living check to check, I was in pretty terrible places, and to be able to do the things I do now, I'm blessed. But it came from being from within. It came from unlocking my potential within, and then figuring out how to spread that to the rest of the world. I want to thank you, Chris, for having me on your show. I want to thank all the amazing Black community leaders in the Oak Park, Forest Park, Maywood, Austin, Berwyn area, all the amazing Latinx and other people of color that are fighting for our rights, all the amazing gay, lesbian, transgendered people that are fighting for our rights. There's so many amazing people out there right in your community that are doing the work. Find those people, listen to them, be inspired by them. And I always say at the end of my show, and I'll share it with your people as well, all this stuff I've been talking about, my philosophy, I call it echo love. So in all things, echo love.
I love it. I love it, man. Echo love. I appreciate you being on the show and really just sharing your vibe, man, and what you're about, what you stand for, what you're looking to change, and most importantly, the world that you're looking to see us live in. And that's what it's all about, brother. I'll end with my tagline as well, man. In order to follow your dreams, got to put your passion first. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I look forward to seeing y'all in the near future. We got an event coming up the 29th, the wellness event. Check the page for it, Your Passion 1ST, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, all the 9 yards. Maui, how do people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Maui Thoughts. You can follow me on Instagram at Mr. Maui Jones, or you can find me on Facebook as Maui Jones, or my business page, which is Echo Theater Collective.
Love you. You're doing great work, bro. Keep it up. The haters gonna hate. Let them fucking hate. I love you, bro. Appreciate you.
Much love.